Hot off the heels of a big Monday pay-per-view, it's time for WWT Live. What's going on, good people? I am your professor, and I've got one question for you. Whose house? You know the answer to that. If you don't, we'll tell you on the other side.
Howdy, folks. This is Willow Nightingale, and you are watching Women's Wrestling Talk.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet.
Happy Monday, good people, and welcome to WWT Live as part of Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. I am your professor, so they call me around these parts. I got a lot of names, a lot of places, but one thing I am is the professor here, and it is good to be here. There's so much that happened over the weekend. It's one of the busiest wrestling weekends that is not a WrestleMania weekend. We had hours and hours of AEW. We had a rebellion from TNA. We did get some WWE news, so there's a lot to get into. I'm not by myself, though. We'll get into it, of course, with the one lady who absolutely can handle all of this. She does her honey pot predictions. She's got live watch-alongs. She does it all, and she just had a birthday. It's Wrestling with Honey. How are you, ma'am?
That birthday hangover feels great today. I feel fantastic. It feels like the day after.
Love to see it.
Feels like the weekend after WrestleMania. It's just
Yes.
a good, feel good Monday hangover. Love it.
This is awesome. This is absolutely awesome. Did you enjoy your birthday weekend?
I did. I thoroughly did. I did. Hubby was very on point with the surprises and the shenanigans and the happenings, which was really awesome. We had a little Times Square day, city day, dinner and a show.
Yeah.
Maybe a yummy sirloin steak was up in there too somewhere at a fancy steakhouse. It was really cool. It was a lot of fun.
We got to shout out the homie, the hubby, Matt. You're doing good work, sir. Kudos to you. You keep her happy. That's a good thing. And we like to see it. And of course, we're not going to get into this big of a weekend by ourselves. We've got a government official hanging out with us. He is the mayor of all things Vice City. Fed is in the building. How are you, sir?
Oh, let's fix that. You guys can hear me now. My apologies.
Yeah.
I'm a little late. Hopefully you guys didn't get the show started without me. How was your weekend, guys?
It was fantastic. Fantabulous.
Yes, it was a good one. How was yours?
Relaxing.
Okay.
Much
and
needed.
I understand why it's relaxing. You're preparing because I'm sure you have quite the contingency traveling to Orlando tomorrow. We'll obviously be getting into that as well. There's so much to get into, but it is popping in the chat, and we haven't really gotten into our first topic yet. We love to see it. I believe the boss lady is hanging out somewhere in parts unknown. So we like to see it. Cousin Ron, good to see you.
Parts that include $60 drinks, I'm sure.
That part. That part.
In her very own words, that part.
Exactly. Dylan, good to see you. Cousin, again, great to see you. Special little nobodies. Yes, Mike, make sure you're hitting the like button, family. It is a very, very good thing. MDB is here, and he says, let's hope Honey had a great 21st birthday. I think she did. I think she absolutely did. All right, so there's plenty to get into, and we are going to start, of course, with the big news from last night. AEW, after a rather controversial week, has really kind of perhaps righted the ship, got into alignment, I don't know, by presenting their pay-per-view Dynasty last night. And lots of championships changed hands last night, which could perhaps signal a new direction for the company. Of course, the main event saw Swerve Strickland defeat Samoa Joe to become the 8th man to hold the AEW World Championship, the first African-American to do so. Before we dig into the rest of the pay-per-view, because there's a lot to talk about, let's talk about the significance of Swerve Strickland as the new AEW champion. We've talked before as to whether or not the other TK would finally pull the trigger. Would he wait till Double or Nothing? So I guess the question is, well, yeah, let's start here. what do you think is the significance of this title win? Honey, we'll start with you.
That's beyond significant for many reasons, including the fact that he is the first Black male champion in AEW wrestling, period, which is awesome. It's saying a lot for Swerve, and it definitely shows that they're going in a different direction going forward. And this is officially Swerve's house, you know, going from Kill Shot to Shane Strickland to Swerve, and seeing the evolution of him. You know, even Isaiah Swerve Scott somewhere in there, like just to see the evolution of Swerve Strickland and him become the man that he's meant to be in this business is very refreshing to see. And it's always so humbling and so great to see another Black man just get gold. And, you know, he did make mention and attribute himself to Kofi Kingston's win at WrestleMania. I would definitely put this up there in that same category, as well as probably one of the greatest wins going forward for him. So I'm happy for him.
Yeah, it's a good moment. Said, your thoughts on this Swerve Strickland title win?
It's beautiful because it shows that if you are really over with the audience, which he has been for the greater part of the last year or so, that the payoffs do exist. I think we've seen that with several stars before, and you never truly got the payoffs. But here, it shows that the work that you put out does matter. And being the first African-American champion, that's going to go down in history for however long this company is around. And that's what's beautiful. I think we saw inklings of that in the past with maybe like Scorpio Sky in the golden days of AEW, but it shows that they're invested in Swerve. And I think when you talk about transitioning to a new era, we talk about it all the time with WWE, like that crossover appeal, those things that you can do outside the ring to bring more eyes to the brand. I mean, hell, Swerve is talking about he has his own signature shoe coming out. Right. That's huge. Those are things that not every superstar can bring to your brand. So I'm hopeful to see more of that, more of those interviews with like New York radio stations like the Breakfast Club, bringing more eyes to the brand that weren't previously there. And I think no better person than Swerve to do so. I just hope one time that the fake TK opens up the checkbook to Shaka Khan. Just one time. Open the checkbook just one time, pay her the fee, give us that legacy interest just once.
Yes.
And it's going to do so much for people who have been following Swerve since the beginning.
Well said. Well said. It's already firing off in the chat. When I get ready to pull this up, I want to ask this particular question, and Seth, I will start with you on this. It has been historically a thing in AEW where sometimes they get the moment right. Sometimes they miss the moment. When I think about Swerve, I think back to almost 2 years ago when he and Keith Lee were the World Tag Team Champions. And everybody felt like the Acclaimed should have won that title at All Out in Chicago. They did not. They ended up winning it 2 weeks later, but it didn't exactly feel the same. There have been a few other moments where it didn't quite happen at the moment that we thought that it should happen. My question is, did this Swerve Strickland win happen at just the right time? Should it have happened earlier, or should it have happened later? As you guys are thinking about that, I'm going to go to some of these comments in the chat. Eric, happy Raw Monday, and it feels more like Black History Month in April with Swerve, Moose, Willow, Athena, Cody, and possibly Trick becoming champions tomorrow. That's hilarious, Eric. Well said, though. Absolutely hilarious. Let's see. Cousin Ron says this is overdue, and I'm super happy for Swerve. He deserves this run. MDB, I'm so glad Swerve got the win. I don't have to call Tony Khan any bad names. So let's get to that. Said, did this happen at the right time? Was it too late, too soon, or just on time?
I think you can make arguments that it should have happened sooner, that it was kind of late. But I think just the magnitude of this being, I guess, the first dynasty, AEW Dynasty, has relevance to crowning the first AEW Black champion. So you can make the arguments that it should have happened sooner when his rise is absolutely meteoric, where you would see the Nana dance trending and stuff like that. But that's what brought you in. Yeah. So they just wanted to see how long you were going to be along for the ride. And since the fans showed up for Swerve, then it made sense to say, hey, we're going to pull the trigger. And I can't really argue with Samoa Joe's title reign either. He was doing phenomenal work. He's the type of guy you can put the ball on anytime. He's going to do phenomenal work in the ring and on the mic. So you wanted to time that right. So I think as fans, we just got to be grateful that the payoff actually happened.
True. True. Very true. Honey, same question.
Yeah, I definitely think this was something that happened just in the nick of time. Like it probably couldn't have happened any better this way for Swerve, especially with everything that he's endured the last few years. I definitely think that it's forthcoming, and it's very telling for Swerve to win this, because it's also like basically we're in the month of April. Everything refreshes for the wrestling year. So it's like springtime in AEW, and they're going to a different direction and recreating their own new era. So shout outs to the fake TK for actually putting something in it, and, giving us less Twitter fingers, So I'm very appreciative of him putting the rocket on Swerve. I think this is somebody who's been long overdue to get that rocket, but once he gets it, he's going to run with it in the best of ways. So, and it's one of those things where you didn't also want to take it away from Samoa Joe as well, like had previously said.
Right.
Funny there. And I'm sorry.
Yes.
Right. I was going to also mention about Samoa Joe. Like, this was probably one of Samoa Joe's greatest reigns that I've ever seen, that I never thought we would be able to see, considering his history with injuries and things like that. And, how he was always put on the back burner in other places. But here he had actually a good chance to shine. And that's not usually promised to a lot of talent, as they get older. So shout outs to Samoa Joe for holding it down, but I think Swerve Strickland got it from here.
That sounds really good. Interesting comment from Boza. Good to see you. He says, I just hope that Swerve has a good reign. Samoa Joe had an average reign, and they didn't pick up after Joe used the Devils to help him beat MJF. I want to ask you, Boza, what you define as average, because I don't think that this reign was average by any means. I have to agree with Honey. If you've watched Samoa Joe's career over time, I think this is the most impressive title reign that he's had as a world champion, going all the way back to his days at TNA. At TNA, he was a monster, and it was almost impossible to beat him. And I think over time and, injuries and the like did not make him as intimidating once he became champion as he was when chasing the championship. Right. This title reign was different. He had a different swagger about him. He beat some people down in the process. The match he had with Hook, honestly, I think is what helped Hook get to the point where he fought Jericho last night, because people could take him as a serious contender and not just, the champion of some renegade title of some sort. So I think that's interesting. Let's see. Matt says he's happy for Swerve. I saw a question here. Dylan asked, where is Keith Lee? So let me answer some of that for you. How do I say this? Okay, I'll just say it this way. Keith Lee was at Wale Mania. Right. I saw him with my own eyes. I'll just say that. And he looked like he was in great shape. Now, being in great shape to attend an event versus great shape to be in the wrestling ring are two different things. But he looked great. Yeah. I did not ask him, about his layoff or anything like that, but I did see him with my own eyes. He looks fantastic. So that's your Keith Lee update. Let's see. Dylan says Samoa Joe had an all right run. He dropped the title he had for years to hold another title for a couple of months. I still don't know if that's how one should define a title reign.
I almost forgot he had the other title. That speaks to how good the run is. I forgot he had that other title and just vacated it.
Exactly. So that says a lot. That says an awful lot. So let's see. Dylan says, I thought Joe had a decent reign. It's Samoa Joe. Yeah, so this is interesting. I almost want to go back to a question we asked several months ago in terms of defining what you guys define as a good champion, because we got mixed answers on that. And I'm just intrigued as to how differently we're all measuring this Samoa Joe reign. But congratulations, of course, to Swerve Strickland, the brand new AEW World Champion. I've got a follow-up question on him that will come in a little bit, as we also said congratulations to Willow Nightingale, who defeated Julia Hart last night to become the new TBS champion. And they wasted no time in showing us what would be up next for Willow Nightingale, which of course would be Mercedes Moné. I want to ask, and I'll start with you, honey. First of all, your thoughts on Willow becoming the TBS champion.
I definitely think it should have definitely happened, and if it didn't happen last night, it probably wouldn't happen for her in the way that it would need to. Julia Hart, I'm surprised she even had the belt as long as she did, but considering that she is the princess of the Black Throne, there's a lot of things that could tie into why and how she held that reign for so long, or held that title for so long. But Willow Nightingale, very, very deserving. I really hope to see, because I've said this before, but I really hope to see Willow come in, especially if she's going against Mercedes, and if they're really going to run it back, like the kids like to say. I really want her to go on a little bit of a mean streak. I kind of want her to like show us some attitude. I know she's very happy-go-lucky, she's adorable, and she's everything, but I just need her just to be a little meaner, especially if you're going at Mercedes Moné, because she's coming for that belt. And once you have a belt and you got the rocket strapped to you, you got a target on your back. So I definitely don't think she should stay happy-go-lucky. I think she should kind of, just watch her back and just know that she's not nothing to be messed with. But other than that, congratulations, Willow.
For sure. There's a question here from MDB. So Mercedes isn't cleared by now? No, that was actually addressed last night on the scrum. She is expected to be cleared by I almost said Stand and Deliver. Wrong show. By Double or Nothing. She's expected to be cleared by then. So that's that. But Seth, I want to ask you not the obvious question. Here's the question I wanted to ask you. What is the possibility that at Double or Nothing, Willow Nightingale defeats Mercedes Moné?
Ooh. I'll put that at like 10%.
10%.
10%. And it would only go higher if what happens is what Honey is trying to predict, as far as a mean streak or maybe even heel turn type of action, because you're just running back the New Japan angle, because we didn't really get that match in full. They didn't even really tell the story, because Mercedes fell off the turnbuckle and got hurt. So now that I think about it, with her not being cleared, it was a pretty gnarly fall from as high as you can be up just to injure your ankle. So ligament damage, stuff like that, you really have to make sure you're right. But in a world where I have to believe that Mercedes is going to be crowned the first strong champion, just to carry that brand a little further, I feel like you're going to tell that story, and it's going to be based off revenge in a way that Mercedes kind of blames Willow for her injury. So that's why I have to believe that Mercedes takes the belt off. But I do feel like we'll get a series of matches. It won't just be like a one-off. Might get a trilogy out of this, just because they weren't able to even tell the story in Long Beach last year.
I think they should do that too.
Yeah, for me, I think it's already being set up where Mercedes is going to have the super mean streak on this one, where she's not, that CEO thing, she'll be the CEO, but she's not going to be the happy CEO. She's going to be the evil CEO. I want Willow to be able to pull that same aggressive nature she had during those hardcore matches that she was having in AEW, and unfortunately they put them on Rampage, but she was putting people through tables and doing all kinds of things. I think that would be pretty amazing. Let's see what some of the comments are saying. Boza says, I don't think Willow and Julia had time to cook. Julia has to still be hurt. They only got 6 minutes. It's frustrating because this screams that Mercedes will win. Cousin Ron, what a past year for Willow. I'm happy for her. Do you feel she can parlay this into an AEW or ROH world title run? That's a great question. Do you think that Willow, and let's, to the point of this run that Willow has been on, it almost seems, well, it kind of goes back to the point we were making with Swerve in terms of the right moment for certain things to happen. And, here it is. the year that Willow had, even going so far as being ranked number 8 on the PWI 250, yet not, and she did that without a championship, main event at an ROH pay-per-view and didn't win it. To Cousin Ron's question, do you think that this TBS title run could parlay into a world title run on the AEW or Ring of Honor side for Willow Nightingale?
I would hope that it would parlay on the AEW side of things. That would be more refreshing if it were, assuming that she does drop the TBS title to Mercedes. Also, has there been any revelation to who attacked Mercedes backstage?
I was just going to ask that too.
Not yet. I thought we were supposed to get some idea last Wednesday, but we did not.
I think it would be a good way to parlay this feud if it's revealed that it was Willow.
That's what I think
that would be the main way to go.
That's kind of what I was getting at, because I know the obvious thought would be Julia because the lights went black, right? But who's to say that could be anybody? And to take down Mercedes like that, I don't see Julia Hart doing it. But I could possibly see a little swerve there. No pun intended with Miss Willow.
Interesting for sure. Let's see. MDB says Mercedes getting paid all that money to be in a mid-card title feud. Love to see it. I just wish listen, the checks cash the same. I just wish Mercedes had at least one match before the pay-per-view. It's frustrating that he wants us to spend $60 to see her debut. Let's see.
It's not like we know how Mercedes wrestles. It's like we're not
right.
I think we're still going to get quality. I don't think there's going to be ring rust or any of that. Just literally health.
Yeah. Mercedes confronting Willow was the wrong move. Do the confrontation on Wednesday. Now, I will say that I do think it's unfortunate that Willow didn't even get 5 minutes with the title before Mercedes is in her face. And it does scream transition, which is one of the reasons why I hope Willow wins the match at Double or Nothing. I almost want to see Mercedes have to work to win this title as opposed to Willow having to work to get the title back.
I feel like it wouldn't be a good look if Willow's a gatekeeper just for the moment. Like, I don't think that would be a good look.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. So that also should be, so this is the one question that I wanted to ask, and I've kind of asked it in one way, but I'm going to ask another, specifically looking at both Willow and Swerve. Last night were great nights for them, but do they both run the risk of being transitional champions?
So that's a great question. I think in the terms of Willow, yes, but the elephant in the room for Swerve is the Wembley show and Will Ospreay that's already being thrown out there. And I would hope that's not the case for Swerve. And I know they want to do things big in Wembley and make it bigger than last year and all that good stuff, but they shouldn't rob us of this moment. Because, I mean, Ospreay's signed. He'll be there a while. He can have his moment later on.
Right.
And I think who's had the shortest AEW World Title reign so far? Because everybody that belt actually has lengthy reigns.
Samoa Joe.
Like how many months? 3?
3. It was because it was end of December. So 1, 2, 3, barely 4. Not quite 4. Not quite 4.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, traditionally this belt has very lengthy title runs. So I hope the same for Swerve. But that Ospreay thing is lingering because he didn't sign over here for no reason.
And they actually asked him about that at the scrum last night, which I just was like, wow.
Like they're already just pushing it onto people. Like why? Like that's one thing I kind of can't stand. Like especially with a lot of the IWC and sometimes the dirt sheets. They just completely just get like overlook at the championship that was just won, and they're already okay. Next person's coming up. Oh, Will Ospreay, and he's definitely going to beat him because he just signed a multi-million-dollar deal, or multi-year deal, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, listen, probably the best thing to do would have him face Ospreay and him beat him in Wembley. Because Ospreay could still put him over, and Ospreay will still be good going forward. Ospreay's one of those superstars that doesn't really need a title to define himself as a wrestler. And we all know that, considering the banger that he put on last night, which I really need to see that match in full. I want to see that match. Like, I don't care if I don't watch the other ones. I will run that match back because I would love to see what happened.
we're gonna talk about that for sure. Let's see. Boza says, Willow, yes, Swerve, if he can go to London, that would be a great run. Well, London is only 4 months away, so that's not that long. Though obviously, you've got Double or Nothing, Forbidden Door, a couple of pay-per-views between now and then. So let's see. MDB says Swerve is losing to Ospreay in London. Eric says Swerve versus Ospreay at All In for the title. Book it. Hope Swerve has a long run as champion. Special Little Nobody says they're about to feed Swerve to Will. So we will see what happens. The opinions are wild already. Now, believe it or not, those weren't the only titles that changed hands last night. We saw the Young Bucks become 3-time World Tag Team Champions. And we also saw the Bang Bang Gang unify the World Trios Championships with the Ring of Honor 6-man tag titles, which I have questions about, but I'm going to come back to that because I want to address this point, and that is the reason why the Young Bucks became the World Tag Team Champions last night, because of a little guy named Jack Perry. Jack Perry seems to be back in AEW. So let's ask the question, does Jack Perry returning to AEW seemingly justify the footage that was shown almost 2 weeks ago that kind of sent AEW in a bit of a tailspin?
I still think, the pun intended, that I gave you when that footage came out, all for nothing. I still think that was just... But I think what this really was intended for was the transition of Jungle Boy into Jack Perry. I think Jungle Boy was something that was a character that was very hard for him to get away from, and it was like, what else can he do? Who else can he be? Like, what other kind of character does he? How much character reach does he have? And they needed to do something with that. So I think that this was a very good way. Maybe not so much putting the footage out because it didn't really do anything for me, in my opinion. I know other people might be inclined to disagree, but I think that what was the task at hand here for AEW was to get him to transition from that Jungle Boy face and always being that good guy into being exactly what this is. Because this guy, this face right here, I'm interested to see more of this. I like this for him. And it's, it's going to be, I'm sure it's going to be quite the transition for him, but I'm sure he's pretty much eating it up already as it is, considering the Twitter fingers that everybody's got over there. But I'm really interested in what happens going forward with Jack Perry. And then he's aligned himself with the EVPs. Could you hate the guy anymore? So I'm sold on it. And I think that's what the real task was in showing all that footage and everything like that, and all that talk about Jungle Boy and I know, well, Jack Perry now. But I think that they did their job here. Now it's to see how far they can go with it.
Let me follow that up with this question. Based on all of the commentary that is out there right now about this Dynasty pay-per-view, the return of Jack Perry, the championships changing hands, do you think that AEW with this pay-per-view has distanced themselves enough from the footage fiasco of 2 weeks ago to be viewed as kind of righting the ship to where they were around Revolution?
No, but they're trying like hell to. I mean, it was a very bad move to let that footage release, and this seems like a forced way to get us to talk about Jack Perry, because I don't think that many people really care. He was just in Chicago at the New Japan Windy City Riot, lost to Shota Umino, and of course he tried to do a troll job thing there. I mean, they did chant "Cry Me a River" last night, so it's just trying to get this bad boy image over, and I feel like it's kind of missing the mark. I don't know what the relation is to him interfering in that match list last night, but it seems like they're just trying to find a fit to get this persona over. That's not really working. I mean, and the footage didn't help. Like You got legitimately choked out backstage, but yeah, we're gonna force you down our throats and say like, hey, this is a bad boy. Like, nah, like you gotta like let things cool off and let people forget Jack Perry a little bit. And I think the New Japan run would have done more for that. So bringing him back to AEW television so abruptly is kind of premature, in my opinion. But we'll see what they do with it. I mean, if we're still showcasing him as one of the pillars of AEW, you have to kind of build on that and allow him to sink or swim.
Going with the Sharks. Hashtag all for nothing.
Yeah. You know that term pillars, which I had not thought about in quite some time. If you take a look at the 4 men who were deemed the pillars of AEW just barely a year ago, remember they had that, I think it was wasn't it Double or Nothing last year? Yeah, it was, where MJF, they had that 4 pillars match for the world title. Look at where they all are now. MJF is not on television. Ricky Starks is not. Well, Ricky Starks wasn't even considered in that. It was Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara is not on television.
Wasn't Sammy, Darby, Jack, and MJF?
Darby Allin is out injured, and Jack Perry just returned. Very interesting. Fatal 4-way, and for those 4 pillars, I'm not sure we should keep calling people pillars, but be that as it may, what I'm gonna do for the sake of time is save my commentary about the Bang Bang Gang becoming the AEW Trios champions. I'm gonna save that for Friday morning's Ring of Honor show, so you guys tune in on Friday morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, and I promise you, TK and I, yes, I'm going to dig TK out of the trenches, and we will talk about this move here for the AEW Trios and Ring of Honor 6-man titles to actually be unified. We'll talk about that then. Moving on, the other title that changed hands last night, Chris Jericho defeating Hook to become the FTW champion. Very quickly, because there's some other news to get to. In 30 seconds or less, does Chris Jericho need the FTW championship, honey?
No, absolutely not. Why do this? What for? What? You know, I'm not sure. I honestly don't have any other words for it, because I saw the picture pop up and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. Like, no way. Like, you couldn't beat Hook a couple weeks ago on the show, but you could beat him now for the title. I don't know what the writers are doing back there, but and it sucks. What really sucks about this is that this is the GOAT Chris Jericho. This is Jericho. This isn't our GOAT though, because he was GOATed years ago for other reasons. But I don't know. This is just one of those things where it's a miss for me, and it's unfortunate because of the stature of Chris Jericho and the longevity that this man has, and how he's been throughout his whole career, and the fact that he's still doing it. Please retire. They're saying please retire in the crowd. Like, that's saying a lot. So why? Don't know, but I guess here we are.
Said.
I just saw a very interesting tweet.
Okay.
People are talking about, I'm sure we're talking about the women's title battle royal later tonight. Mickie James just tweeted out, "Be there soon," in regards to the Rhea Ripley's vacant title tonight. So that's interesting. But as far as Chris Jericho, I mean, the response in the arena says it all. People saying retire, just complete go away. Maybe he leans into that. Maybe this builds Hook's character arc, but we've seen Chris Jericho banded with so many young stars before, and it's backfired. And I have to feel like Chris knows this. I think he's intelligent enough to know this, that he's kind of dimming his light show after show. And does it bring more eyes to the FTW championship? Maybe you see it on television more during segments, but like, I don't even know if it's a regulation title. So
I feel you on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Chris is doing. I mean, Chris should be in GOAT and Mount Rushmore conversations off longevity alone, but he's doing way more to dim his career, seemingly trying to help others by helping himself. So you can only hope that he takes wind of some of the backlash and either leans into it in a heel type of way, or just, like, hey, maybe I don't need to be on TV. Maybe I need to produce some matches and like be backstage.
I'm hoping and praying that this is an opportunity for him to drop a title to somebody, that there's somebody he wants to drop it to that deserves it. I'm hoping there's somebody that can, achieve that task, but I'm not sure where they're going with this. So,
yeah, this is getting very, very, very interesting. There's a lot of I mean, my God, there are so many comments. The other thing, of course, oh man, time. The other big match that everybody's talking about, of course, is Will Ospreay, Bryan Danielson. Many are calling it already match of the year. Some are calling it match of the decade. Some are calling it match of their lives. All of these kinds of things. But there was a spot in there where Will Ospreay hit, it's like a powerbomb move. I forgot the exact name of it, but it was really nasty and gnarly. And they brought the doctors in immediately, and Ospreay said he didn't see it, went and did his finishing move. Lots of concerns. They had some cameras on in the back. Then they went on, and Ospreay came out on the scrum and was very sad about this, said he's retiring the move. The Tiger Driver 97 or 91. That's what I'm seeing in the chat. What are your thoughts on this? There are actually people that are saying that this whole thing is a work, which there are parts of me that I'm just like, I don't know if it's in good taste to work something as serious as the neck injury that obviously Bryan Danielson sustained, and then to carry it out so far into the media scrum. So before I share what I think, what were your thoughts on this piece of news, and where do we go from here?
I mean, I don't think you play around when you say you're going to retire a move, because it might actually be something that's very dangerous. But if it is a work, I mean, brilliant on Daniel Bryan playing on something that's very real to his life and his career, because this is his final chapter. We know that the clock is ticking. If he's saying, like, especially after the promo he gave, I believe, at Collision about his heaven being exactly in that ring, maybe this plays into that promo where he's like, you know what, I'll die for this type of energy I get from wrestling. So from that standpoint, I can see it being a work. But as far as Will saying he's retiring to move, just like Samoa Joe's Muscle Buster was donezo, like, for years. It's actually a very dangerous predicament for performers to actually be put in that position. So I think that there's a lot of realism to that.
Honey?
I like I said, I didn't see last night. I didn't see any of the stuff that went on, but I did see, like, this picture come up, and I'm just like, oh boy, here we go again. Like, I thought it was something legit. I thought it was something that legit happened, and it's kind of hard to tell. But if Bryan Danielson is one of the best sellers that we know he is, he did a great job at convincing me that he was actually, that something actually triggered his neck. But I don't think so. I mean, I think this is more for the cause of storytelling going forward. I don't think this should be the last time we see Ospreay and Bryan Danielson. I know his time is ticking, but I wouldn't be surprised if they make him his last match as well. And maybe they're just setting that up for the storytelling part of it. So I don't know. I would have to watch the match myself.
Yeah, I did get to see what happened, and I also watched the scrum, and I'm just going to say this. I feel like this is the problem with the internet wrestling community, and I'm promising myself I'm not going to go on a tirade with this. But what I am going to say is I think the problem with this is the community has gotten itself to a point where they believe everything is a work and they don't believe anything. Remember, last week, this time, people were talking about, is it a work that Rhea Ripley is injured? How can they use this to the storyline? Is this like all of this talk as if people don't believe that you can actually be injured in this sport? We've seen it tons of times. And I just think that it's so unfortunate. And let me just also say this too. I say this very respectfully. I caught my own tone. I say this very respectfully. You mean to tell me that a company that has not always told the greatest stories throughout their history are going to manage to tell a story to execute in the ring like this and carry it out into the scrum, the same kind of scrum that's gotten people fired? They use that scrum for people to really kind of let their hair down, not for them to carry out storylines. So I'm concerned that there's a lack of consistency in the thought process in the internet wrestling community when you don't realize when real things are happening and you call them a work. I think you just got worked.
Right.
And I think that's the unfortunate part about this is people are so jaded, and I that's problematic for me. And I know, one expression of my thoughts likely isn't going to change that, but I would like for wrestling fans to just think a little more. Like, instead of moving on the conspiracy theory train, just think to yourself, has AEW consistently told these kinds of stories with this level of depth? No, they have not. You cannot point to one story where they have intentionally set out to do this kind of thing. Have they used real things? Yes, they have. But they were things that they didn't plan to have happen. They're still trying to recover from the all-out scrum. And then you had the all-in fiasco, which they brought themselves back into. They brought that whole thing back onto the playing field 2 weeks ago unnecessarily. So if you mean that company is calling this a work? Come on, guys. Come on. The same company. I don't, not with a Billy, and hold on, because I know where MDB's going. Billy Starks, professor. Yeah, Billy Starks, who never had a history of these kinds of injuries and who turned around and fixed it in the ring. We didn't see that last night. So that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. All right, let's move from this, because there was actually other wrestling this weekend, including TNA had a pay-per-view called Rebellion, took place Saturday night, excuse me. Or was it Friday night?
Maybe it was. This weekend went so fast.
It was Saturday. No, it was Saturday. It was Saturday night, because it was that up against Collision. One of the big pieces of news coming out of this is the return of Matt Hardy, which I find to be so interesting, because just a couple of days ago, we were wondering, is Matt Hardy going to be involved in this whole Wyatt situation? Matt Hardy returned to TNA as Broken Matt Hardy, and it looks like he will be going after the TNA World Championship. Now, we aren't going through all of the results because we did have full post show on this. There's a whole post show on all of these pay-per-views from over the weekend, which you guys can check out. But I do want to talk about the return of Matt Hardy, as he was a free agent, no longer with AEW. What are your thoughts on Matt Hardy returning as Broken Matt Hardy, where it all started in TNA?
I want to call a possible swan song journey for this man. That's what I think. And I think he did it right as far as coming back as this Broken Matt Hardy, because this was where he triumphed when he created this character. This is something that became organic and authentic and connected very well with the fans, especially the indie fans. Broken Matt Hardy and Broken Jeff Hardy, when that first initially happened, I'm going to shout out my little brothers, because they were the ones who put me onto when they first came up with that. And I was like, what the hell is this? What are these skits with, and King Maxwell and all of that? But, I definitely think there was some nostalgia for it in TNA, and it's, I'm not hating it, but I do know that he is very well seasoned in the game. So he's got a time limit as well. But I think this is just more for him to have a swan song and finish on his own terms, as opposed to, what they were doing over in AEW and everything that happened with his brother and such. And it kind of makes sense that, he was probably around shopping, because he was seen at a Monday Night Raw and, a couple of weeks ago as well. So it's just like, he was just seeing what he's got left for himself and what we're possibly going to see what he's got left in the tank. So bring it on, Broken Matt.
Sid?
I think it's a good look from the standpoint that you're going to a place that receives your work very well, receives his character very well. And I know the news came out over the weekend that Jeff's contract is about to be up sooner than people thought. However, I did see that Matt replied to somebody on Twitter saying that, no, he's actually still a free agent. So I don't know what type of appearance deal that he has going on. But it's good to get eyes on the product from outsiders, especially in your world title picture. So I think that's a great move for TNA. They've been doing a lot of great things to kind of give the fans what they want to see and make things more exciting again, kind of like a little forbidden door of their own. So good to see from that standpoint. I think it'll draw eyes. Fans love this character. I personally have never understood this character. So if anybody's out there that can explain this character and why it's great, I would love that.
I'll tell my little brothers to hit you up.
Yeah, I've never understood it. But I think Matt doing this and kind of going on I wouldn't call it a farewell tour. I really believe he thinks he has a lot left in the tank and still probably wants to have his last match be a TLC match. That's what I think he wants with him and his brother. So time will tell. But I think this is a good look for him to kind of show like, hey, I still have a lot left.
It's so interesting when I think about Matt Hardy. He is he doesn't get the credit perhaps that he deserves. No. What he, of course, and his brother did in the TLC match. I mean, think about the matches we would never have had they not really brought the TLC match to us. But then, if you go back to 2016, where he really introduced the cinematic match to us, that whole deletion or the final deletion, that match revolutionized pro wrestling. And it introduced this whole cinematic concept as a movie that people are still attempting to this day to reunite him with, and he was the brainchild behind that. So to reunite him with TNA at this point would be amazing. Now, let's also remember, TNA, you're right, does do per appearance types of deals. And so if this is a one-off or just a few, kind of appearances type of thing, that would be interesting. I still don't think him going to WWE is without question or out of the question. And he and WWE and TNA's relationship is already established. So I don't think this negates him from showing up at WWE as soon as, I don't know, tonight. But let me not get any rumors.
That's cool, but Jeff, he got to.
Now
he
Jeff's
got to clear that palette out from his last stint.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing, which we will at some point talk about. But that was not the only return Saturday night. We also saw the return of Sami Callihan. Sami Callihan, who had a great run in TNA, is back there. He assisted the women's champion there, Jordynne Grace, in retaining her championship. And then we had yet another return, and that is Mike Santana, whose last stint, of course, was in AEW, part of Proud and Powerful. He is back in TNA. So lots of returns for TNA this weekend at Rebellion. And I'll just give my 2 cents and say I'm absolutely shocked that Nick Nemeth is not the TNA World Champion. That is shocking.
I know for sure he was taking that title around.
Like, it was a done deal.
Like, that's very surprising.
That's something I didn't think I was going to get so soon. I didn't want that. I kind of didn't want that.
I figured it just made sense for where TNA was going. But, we'll see. Now, granted, with his responsibilities as the IWGP Global Heavyweight Champion, that might be something he might be paying attention to right now. But great pay-per-view and great opportunities there for our friends over at TNA. Now, speaking of this, TNA, of course, was in Vegas for their pay-per-view, and we have now found out that the next premium live event for NXT is Battleground, and that originally was supposed to be at the end of May in Savannah, Georgia. Maybe they got wind of the brawl that happened in Savannah over the weekend, which was covered on TMZ, which is not wrestling related, though you could have argued that it was if you saw the footage. Either way, they have moved it from Savannah, and now they are going to Las Vegas. Now, what's super interesting about this is that this is the first official partnership for a WWE branded event to happen with the UFC. Now, of course, we know their connection by way of TKO, their parent company, but this is going to be interesting. This is happening at the UFC Apex, which is a state-of-the-art venue that a lot of UFC events happen at. Said, man, I know this is kind of your stomping grounds. What are your thoughts on NXT Battleground moving to this venue specifically, and what do you think this means going forward?
Tester event. Perfect tester event. We already know that people were there was, I think it was Undertaker's 6 Feet Deep podcast where he kind of spilled the beans on, it's Vegas next year. And that's what I think. That's what you're telling me about
Can't
WrestleMania.
Tell some people anything, man.
Right.
Can't hold
he
water.
let it slip. So this is a tester just to see, like, hey, are fans going to show up? I don't think the UFC Apex is a very large venue by any means. So you have NXT go there, see if they can fill it out, see if wrestling fans travel well in the City of Sin, which I'm pretty sure they will. I know outside everything from the Strip, I mean, wrestling fans do travel. And I think putting this there is the perfect precursor to an announcement for WrestleMania to see exactly how the wrestling audience can be perceived in that market. But for NXT, it's huge. I don't know. I don't even know if there's been an event at the T-Mobile Arena yet in Las Vegas.
They did the I mean, there've been a number of events there wrestling related, but that's where they did the kickoff, the WrestleMania kickoff.
Okay, so WrestleMania kickoff was the last like WWE themed event. So obviously I think they're just testing the waters and actually doing a PLE there. This possibly being, if you want to call it, the first PLE of a new era, if you would, after tomorrow night for NXT. I think it's a good look. It's a really good look.
So this is a very interesting stat, and I don't know what this really means other than, obviously I think it supports the tester theory. The capacity, the max capacity for this Apex facility is 1,000 people. They're gonna breathe and get that. Like that's nothing for them. They just did 16,000 people at Stand and Deliver.
Which I should probably get this off right now. Big Money TK, run me my tickets so I can so I can be here.
You might need to get them in fast because I don't know how much room they're gonna have for anybody if this at max.
So you said 1,000. I thought it would have been more than that, but 1,000 is nothing. Like, you're gonna have a great seat because when you watch UFC events at the Apex, you can hear everything. Think of the pandemic shows that we had in WWE with the what did they call it? The Thunderdome. The Thunderdome. It's going to be like that. Very intimate. Very intimate setting.
I kind of like it though.
Interesting. But I think this clearly proves that they're testing something, because if you just got 16,000 people, you obviously would go after a larger venue. I mean, they could look at the Thomas and Mack Center. They're really looking at this partnership with UFC very, very seriously. And
sorry, not to mention, but the press conference, that was like first come, first serve crowd, wasn't it?
Correct.
So they were already experimenting with that, and that was during Super Bowl weekend. So they know what they're doing with this buildup, and this honestly, I like the way even just the flyer looks on paper. Like, this is something I want to keep seeing every year. Hopefully, it'll grow out of the Apex or a different facility to where you need more than over 1,000 people, because I'm gonna want to eventually go and see that myself.
Well, I think we're at a space. I don't think this is an issue of whether or not they can pull the house. I mean, this is not that. I think this is far more about, let's see what this facility can do for us, and what we can do with it. Because one of the things that we have found out, there's been a lot of talk about WrestleMania. We have talked before about how WrestleMania has not been announced yet. There are those who want to see if it's going to go back to Minneapolis. We've been getting some small comments from Nick Khan here and there. One of those is that they don't want to put it at an East Coast outdoor venue and run the risk of it being cold during that same time of year. They've also talked about steering away from competing with the Final Four. The latest word now is that this whole thing could move to the month of May.
I saw that.
And so I guess my question is, can we handle a May WrestleMania? And if so, where would we want it?
You're thinking about a brand new WrestleMania on a different day, which has never been done before, and you got to outdo the 40th. You might have to go with Vegas on that one. You might, and considering the history that WWE already has with Vegas this past year alone, it makes so much sense. It really does make so much sense.
Set.
WrestleMania is WrestleMania. You can put WrestleMania in December, and people are going to show up.
That's
number one. I don't think it matters if it's in March, April, May. People are going to show up because it's a spectacle and how many things they do around the city. Like wrestling promotions feast off WrestleMania's locations every single year alone. So whenever they decide to do it, just the announcement alone, if it is a month later, that just allows more people to get their ducats in order to be able to go. So I think it's a brilliant idea if they truly do not want to battle with the NCAA anymore. And if there really is Vegas, pull the trigger. Like, hey, this is going to be the first time we pilot WrestleMania in May just to see what the response is. And I think you're going to have now what'll be interesting is the road to WrestleMania that year, how they space things out between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. Because now obviously you have more time to tell stories, let things build. And if the summertime is truly going to be an international tour every year from now, I think it parlays directly into that easily. You go home after WrestleMania, maybe a few weeks later you do the draft, and now we're overseas for the summer. Sure. This makes sense.
Yeah. Boy, there's a lot of comments. Let me get to a couple of these comments here. Let's see. Boza says they're testing Nick Khan's theory. He doesn't want Mania to compete with the Final Four. I'm wondering if this Nick Khan does not wanting to compete with Double or Nothing. Savannah fans and fans that had tickets to this event under the press release on Facebook weren't happy. I'll let Dylan's comment respond to that. Nick Kerr doesn't care about Double or Nothing because Double or Nothing, there really isn't competition between the two. No. Could they be upset that Minneapolis sort of spoiled it? There were rumors in March that they were operating under the... Okay, Boza, let me say this. What I think we're all going to have to do, we're in a new era, and that's not just like a tagline. Part of this new era that we're having to adjust ourselves to is the fact that Nick Khan really does, this is going to be crazy to say, he thinks bigger than Vince McMahon. And here's what I mean. Vince McMahon thought about being a great big wrestling company that was bigger than the wrestling competition. Nick Khan has always been looking at how do we compete with other sports? Let's go back to, do you remember when they started that day one pay-per-view? It was supposed to be 2 years, but it was 1 year, 2022. That was the year that Brock. Yeah, it happened here in Atlanta. And the whole reasoning behind that was he wanted to leverage people already being in town for the college football bowl games and things like that. So it was like, let's give them something else to do, but it was not in competition with the bowl games. I think Nick Khan, again, because of his work as a sports agent and other things, he recognizes the value of not going head to head with these other sports. And consider this, does the Super Bowl go head to head with the World Series? Right? Does the NBA finals go head to head with, the Olympics? Like these kinds of things don't happen. They all respect each other's calendar. And so I don't think this is anybody being scared of somebody. I think this is, if we want to be viewed in the same conversation as a sport, what these sports do is they don't try to compete with each other's big events. Now, you can't avoid regular season stuff. There's going to be a hockey game, a basketball game, and a baseball game the same night. That's not where they're worried about competing. But you're not going to see the World Series and the
Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl going head to head. And so I think That's what we're looking at. And I think we just have to consider those kinds of things. They respect each other's calendar. They're not even in the same seasons. Right now, MDB, he always tests me. The NBA and the NHL are literally in the exact, they're both having their playoffs right now.
Like literally right now.
Right now.
Like
you know,
literally. Like yesterday.
but you're not going to see them, trying to go head to head per se. So I think that is where WrestleMania is looking at things. And I don't think that that's a bad thing, because that also says to the fans that we understand that you're also fans of other things, And so what's the cross section? And we talked about this before, the potential cross section between, those in the college basketball world and those in the WWE world. There's a significant cross section. Yeah. I mean, it's that kind of thing. So I think this will be interesting, to say the least. All right, let's keep it going, because one of the things that we found out over the weekend is the first opponent for Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship, and that is AJ Styles. Will get the shot at Backlash. He defeated LA Knight at SmackDown to become the #1 contender. This match ought to cook. This is going to be
stupid. It's going to be stupid.
It's going to be crazy. So it's happening at Backlash Saturday, May the 4th. Mark your calendars. Also, I hope, and it's very subtle, I think WWE are the kings of all things branding and marketing. And anytime they want to make a change, they will do it so subtly that you don't even realize it happened. So, for instance, and I had some friends messaging me about this because they're like, what is the WWE title now? Isn't it the WWE Universal title? No, ma'am. No, sir. It is just it's the undisputed WWE Championship. The Universal piece is gone. And some people didn't even notice it, but they started with that very, very quickly, which again, I understand. The lineage is with the WWE title. And whenever you merge two things, you usually don't keep them both. One of them has to go, So Cody will defend the WWE Championship May the 4th. They just wrapped up actually a great tour in Europe. And I'm kind of kicking myself because I meant to have a graphic for this, but we'll talk about it briefly. One of the cool things that happened over the weekend was Jade Cargill had her first WWE live event, aka house show. It involved her with the Big Three in Erie, Pennsylvania, and it was stellar. It was amazing. Like, these are the things that people asked for when it came to Jade Cargill, that she'd get more opportunities, get more reps. The best place to do that are these live events, and the people really took to her greatly. Side note, if you want to see something really cool, I believe it's on Bianca Belair's TikTok, where it's the Big Three dancing in the locker room.
Oh my God, I just saw that video too. I just saw that. I just need more. I love the camaraderie between these three, and I love that it's just so organic and authentic. You could tell like they just click so very well, honestly. And a lot of people probably didn't see it coming that way, but I'm here for it. I am so here for it.
I'm here for every bit of this. I love all of it. We're going to go into overtime for just a little bit, guys. I hope you guys don't mind. There was talk about this in the chat room, and I didn't mention it because I knew we were getting to it. And that is another thing happened over the weekend, and that is a number of releases on the WWE side. Now, we might have forgotten that usually following Mania, there are some releases. It has happened this way several years. Last year was the only year it really didn't happen, and that's because the sale was in talks, and so none of those kinds of things were happening. The releases so far for WWE included Indus Sher and former WWE champion Jinder Mahal. Also, Xia Li was involved in that. Von Wagner was involved in that, as was Zion Quinn. So those were the releases for just this past week in WWE. Any thoughts on these releases?
The response by Indus Sher and Jinder Mahal has been very telling on social media. I mean, the others, I think that Xia Li was never really given a chance. I mean, the Tian Sha thing was good for her, and then they kind of always painted her outside of the protector gimmick, which was very short lived. They kind of painted her as the evil foreigner, which never really worked. They tried to reboot Zion Quinn as kind of like a heavy in NXT, which they didn't really allow him the creative freedom to actually have a really milestone feud. Von Wagner was given chance after chance after chance. So I'm not sure where they went wrong with Von, but even with Mr. Stone being his mouthpiece, it never really worked. But like Jinder Mahal, who just late last year had a promo segment with The Rock and did phenomenal in it.
It was the new year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, did phenomenal with that segment. To be gone now, former champion, that one says a lot. That one says a lot, just because, I mean, he's always good when he presents himself on screen. Always stays in shape. Always can put on a really good match. We just what was it last year at the Raw After Mania, where we kept getting all the Veer is coming promos and vignettes, and they never paid that off. That's very telling. And now the response from these three men, mainly Veer as well as Sangha, is Indian pride, and how they wanted all the representation of having Indian superstars, but never really paid it off with actual on-screen time and meaningful stories. So now there's no Indian superstars in the company. As you remember, Mansoor got released last year as well. So I believe these guys will all do great things. It'll be interesting to follow their journey and what they do. I feel like they can be back, but I just would like to know more outside of just like general budget cuts. Because if you know, they had every year, I think they go to India and they have WWE India and then scout for talent to do tryouts, things like that. So it was very surprising for me.
Yeah, I would say the most disappointing of the releases for me personally, no offense, but I did not care about Von Wagner. Just saying, never did, never saw it for him. I was like, Sean, what are we doing? Like, come on, nobody likes it. But Xia Li was a very big one for me, because they didn't even give her an opportunity. She could have had so many of them too, where she could have just been the quiet assassin and slayed every woman on that roster to work her way up to get the strap. And Zion Quinn. Zion Quinn was very disappointing to me, because you had him be the strong man in NXT all of a sudden. He had a little comedy to him, which was cool to see, because it shows that he had a little range. But look at him. The guy's a stud. He has the look, and he could wrestle. He was very good. He was he just looked like he had that ability to become that upper echelon star, like later on in the long run. But you have him show up on a SmackDown against Braun Breaker, where he got pretty much squashed with a spear, which we know damn well wouldn't happen in real life. But for him to go down that way kind of disappoints me. I feel like they could have done him and Xia Li a lot better. Jinder Mahal is obviously one big disappointment. He's actually one of my favorites to watch. I saw when he won. AJ Styles beat him for the title at Madison Square Garden years ago, and that was just something that had never happened before, where the title changed hands at a house show, which was awesome. So, it's sad to say that there's only one member of the 3MB left, and that's DM Hunk. But we wish them all the best, and we really hope that it leads to something better. I mean, I would have liked the Jinder Mahal versus the Indus versus a Final Testament kind of gig. Put the big boys in a War Games match and let them destroy each other. Like there could have been some things, I think, that could have been prevented from these releases. But business as usual, and business must go on, and so must the show.
Yeah, and I do think, I hope that all of them land really well. I think Xia Li to TNA would be incredible.
Oh, wait, that's Ring of Honor. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think she would be insane in TNA. Like, I just think that would be such a good fit for her. I'm not quite sure for the others yet, but the cool thing is there's so much wrestling available to them that they could go pretty much wherever they wanted. Absolutely. And find great success. So
they missed on Veer and the whole $1 million arm thing.
Oh, they totally did. They totally did.
They missed.
They totally did.
What was that?
The Veer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And this is interesting. Zion and TNA. Yeah, that could actually be interesting too. I think he could. There's some space for him, I think, there, which I think would be awesome. Let's see. Zion could have at least one title run. Vaughn got extra life in NXT. He should have been gone when the sale happened. Zion got lost. So, which by the way, shout out to Becky Lynch for giving Xia Li a shot at that NXT championship.
Yeah.
I thought that was such a really cool move, a really, really cool move. I don't have a lot of time.
Lord.
So let's just say Goldberg struck again and move on. All right. One of the cool things that happened over the weekend at Ashe Wrestling, which I want to make sure you guys are aware of. If you've not had a chance to watch what Ashe is doing, check it out at AsheWrestling.com. I'm not just saying that because I'm a part of it. I'm saying it because some really cool things are happening. And one of the cool things that happened was Kiera Hogan had a match against Danny B. Danny B is one half of the current NWA Women's Tag Champions, the King Bees. The match was a really dope match. Kiera Hogan won, but it turned into a thing. And while I'm interviewing Kiera Hogan, the King Bees come over. And then out of nowhere, Tasha Steelz shows up. And we end up with our next show. This is insane that I'm even saying this. The reunion of Fire and Flava, the former TNA Knockouts Tag Team Champions. They will take on the current NWA Women's Tag Team Champions, the King Bees, and this happens on June the 22nd at our next Ashe Wrestling show. So it's going to be nuts. There's footage out there of how it happened. You can check it out on Ashe's socials, but just a wild, wild scenario. All sorts of cool things happening in the world of wrestling, particularly women's wrestling, and some great women's matches happened over the weekend at Ashe as well, on top of some other really, really cool things. So I'm going to keep you guys abreast of all of that. Again, you can check out the whole show at AsheWrestling.com. Before we go, a quick preview of tonight, Monday Night Raw. There's an awful lot that will happen. Let me go back because I see Boza is mentioning, is that for the Mission Pro Tag titles? Yes, they did win the Mission Pro Tag titles Saturday night, the night after they were at Ashe. So we're not sure if it will be for either of those tag titles or what, but it'll be great. Tonight on Raw, the return of Gunther. We've not seen him since WrestleMania. All this talk of tag titles. Well, the World Tag Team Championships will be on the line tonight as the champions, the Awesome Truth, defend against DIY. Speaking of tag team action, we'll also see, I'm excited for this, Ricochet and Andrade as a team against the Judgment Day. Oh, this is going to be crazy. This is going to be crazy. But of course, everybody's talking about this. Of course, last Monday is where we found out that the Women's World Championship was vacated due to injury for Rhea Ripley. We were wondering, how in the world would this be determined? We didn't know. We found out over the weekend that it will be a battle royal to determine the Women's Championship. So here are the ladies that will be in the battle royal. And from that, I want to get your predictions. These are the folks who will be in this. Becky Lynch, yes, she's back from vacation. Shayna Baszler, Zoe Stark, Natalya, Tegan Knox, Ivy Nile, Maxine Dupree, Katana Chance, Caden Carter, Nia Jax, Liv Morgan, Piper Niven, Chelsea Green, Candice LeRae, and Indy Hartwell. Who's going to be the World Women's Champion or the Women's World Champion by the time Raw goes off the air tonight? Honey, what do you say?
I don't have my honey pot predictions put up yet, but they will be put up after this because I was literally saving the draft before I had to join you guys. But I do say there, with my memory serves me correctly because I did it so fast, a lot of people aren't gonna like me for this, but I am gonna go with the obvious choices, the obvious two choices. It's gotta be one of those two. But there's one little idea that does not, that just cannot escape my thoughts. Can we also, is it possible, since we've been saying it for the last couple of weeks, and I remember saying this a couple of months ago when we found out that SummerSlam was going to be in Ohio. We're in Ohio tonight.
We are.
And we are also on the 5-year anniversary of the beginning of the Firefly Funhouse.
We are.
Need I say more? Could it be a possibility of a reveal of a reigning women's champion, a multiple women's champion return with her blissful little self? Is that a possibility? Also, with the whole screen captions and the screen grabs from these little vignettes that are happening and popping up on our screen, and we got to catch the QR code as fast as you can. It led to something called Cross Cave. Nikki Cross, maybe? Could we see a couple more appearances tonight? I don't know, but I just can't. Besides the obvious choices, because those are the ones I'm going with, I just cannot put past me that we're going to be on Ohio, and it's the anniversary of the Firefly Funhouse. So something's happening tonight with this match. Something good. I will hope.
Said.
I'll make this quick. Usually when WWE has to pivot, they have a nice surprise for you. So I don't think it's going to be any of the ladies listed in that Royal Rumble, Royal Rumble and the Battle Royal. But for sake of picking somebody, Nia. My surprise, Trish.
Oh. Ooh.
Oh.
Ooh. Wow.
Ooh.
All right. Well, let's run quickly. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that either. Ashe is dope. Thank you, Special Little Nobodies. I appreciate that. Raw is shaping up to be another good one. Dylan says DIY. He also says Liv will be the one. Eric says Liv. Let's see. Boza says Alexa does return to shock us to become champion. Okay, so Boza says Alexa. I am of the mindset that it will not be anyone we expect. It will not be anyone we expect. I can say that for sure. As much as I would like to see Nia, perhaps, it's going to be somebody we don't expect. It's going to be something we need to be talking about for the next week or so. So, yeah, now this one, that's hilarious. Wendy Richter. Hilarious.
Wow.
Absolutely hilarious. Matt says Liv, but I would love for Alexa to come back. Boza says, shocker, I would think either Maxine or Trish. Oh boy. Needless to say, you guys have got me very excited to watch tonight, and I hope you will be watching again. 8 p.m. Eastern is the start time. I'm not sure what time the Battle Royal will happen, if it'll even end the show, which it possibly could. Who knows? But let's talk about how you could reach out to us on these here social streets, Said.
You can find me on Twitter at says, that's CEWD_SIYS. On the gram, it says The Answer on this platform, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I write for dailyddt.com. I should have some draft content coming up here shortly for Daily DDT, and we are actually looking to do this NXT show probably pretty soon. So outside of Lola time tomorrow, that you'll see when we talk about Wednesday, there might be a recap of NXT this week.
Well, you know what? If we keep it up, the location might change like Battleground did. So who knows? Honey, how can the people find you?
You can find me here and all my sweetness with the crew at WWT live on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. I haven't been in, but after this Friday, I will be back fully. And then don't forget my Honey Pot predictions previously from Monday Night Raw, and also previously for Honey SmackDown. Watch along every Friday here at WWT Live as well. Please follow me at TikTok Wrestling with Honey, Instagram Wrestling with Honey, Facebook Wrestling W Honey, and like and subscribe to the new YouTube page that'll be up and running real soon, the Wrestling with Honey podcast. And one more thing, you see this book? Your girl is almost done with it. Got about 100 pages more, and I will be doing a book review on this because this was too good to not talk about.
Ooh. You know, I was at my local Target the other day, and I didn't see that book, and I got a bit upset because I really wanted to get my hands on it. So maybe
she's all over Barnes and Noble, though.
I'll have to take that trip, and now I have to take that trip and head there. You guys, of course, can check me out at Bonnerfied across all the socials. All kinds of content on my socials these days. So check it out. Some cool openers we did with Southern Honor. Some work we did with Ashe this weekend. I did a lot of work with Ashe this weekend, and I was actually very, very proud of it. And so you guys can check all of that work out at AsheWrestling.com or on a lot of the clips that are floating out there. So I had an opportunity to help host that show with the Great Big Swole, who actually helped to co-host Wale Mania for those who were there. So Big Swole is amazing. We have great chemistry, just an amazing time. So go back, check out Ashe Cosmos at AsheWrestling.com. My commentary work is with Southern Honor and IWE on IWTV, also with the Nightmare Factory and All Caribbean Wrestling on their respective YouTube channels. And there are matches that are floating right now from Philly Mania on the All Caribbean Wrestling YouTube page. I had a chance to check out some of those, so you can go back, check those out as well.
Go watch those. All Caribbean Wrestling is the truth. Go watch those. Every single one of y'all in that chat. I was there with my own eyes, and I'm going to watch it again on YouTube.
It was fun. It was so much fun. So definitely go check it out. Let's see. And the outfits were litty. Thank you so much. Yeah, we had some fun with those. Also, all things women's wrestling talk, WW Talk Pod on the social. So you can check that out. You can also check out our website, www.talkpod.com. Check out all of the post shows that we've done for these pay-per-views over the weekend. They are available on all of our channels, as are some great interviews, great content from All Things Mania. And there's always more to come. Always, always, always. So be on the lookout. Shout out to everybody. DJ T, Cousin Ron, Special Little Nobodies, Dylan, Matt, Boza, Barry Monkey 99, MDB. I'm missing some people. I know it, so forgive me now. Eric, and whoever else I may have missed, thank you for hanging out with us. You guys are absolutely amazing. We can't do this without you. We'll see you back here for WWT Live on Wednesday. Until then, this has been Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet. Peace.
Thanks for joining WWT. Don't forget to like us on all social media platforms at WW Talk Pod. Like and subscribe on all video and audio platforms, like yesterday, my G. And check out our website at www.talkpod.com. Thanks for watching Women's Wrestling Talk. The